Welcome back to Pigments. In this video, we're going to go over a couple things. One, we're going to go over the sample engine, and two, we're going to be using the sequencer to do some stuff. There's not a lot of synths I can think of off the top of my head that include wavetable, analog, and sample stuff, and especially not with the Granular engine. Granular can be a little difficult to understand, but we're going to make it happen. So, welcome to the sample engine. It's currently set to a single grand piano sample. Take note of that little white bar going across the sample. Also take note that it's going across where it says A underneath there. It's going to be important as we move through this. When you click on the place where it says grand piano, we get access to samples. And we can load our own in too. I've got some stuff down here. We can move the start position with this over here. Oh, isn't that beautiful? These do pass through our envelope VCA down here. So if you want to increase the release of your sample, just go ahead and increase the release of your envelope VCA. Let's go over to map first, because this is going to be how we're going to talk about a little bit more about how the sampler works and also a little bit about how the sequencer works. So the first mode is single. Let's go ahead and load some more samples into B through F so that we can see how we can switch through them. As you see B through F right here, you can also click on them right here. So we have a E piano C3 in here. Let's go ahead and just put some copacetic things in here that are all going to sound a little different. Okie dokie. So as we pick a different sample, either here or here, we can pick them in single mode. Let's go to Keymap. Keymap works by spreading these samples, these 6 samples, across an octave range. You can see that we have C0 down here and C5 up here. Keep an eye on where that white bar is, because that's going to tell us which sample is currently playing. So, different octaves, different samples. We can change the range by clicking this. So, let's jump over to the sequencer and see why this is interesting. The sequencer is really cool in this. There's an ARP and a sequencer. We're going to be talking mostly about the arpeggiator. This takes incoming notes and rhythmically repeats them in various ways. So, with these samples across different octaves, if I hold multiple octaves and play like a chord, I will play different notes and different samples. We can change the ARP mode to be different from just going up. And we can do random. Now, we can also do things like up, down, and turn up this little dice right here, which will change the octave every single time. See how those little blue bars appeared there? Those are our randomization bars. If we go over to what's called regen over here and hit regen, it regenerates the randomization. And if we choose auto regen, we can choose a time division in which the regeneration will be done for us automatically. So watch these blue bars as we pass through every measure. Pretty nifty, right? We'll come back to that in a second. The next mode is key velocity map. Similar to Keymap, but we lose 3 octaves and instead gain velocity. So velocity is how hard you hit a key. Let me turn off our sequence real quick. You can hear as I hit a key harder, we trigger a different sample, D, A, E, B, F, C. So let's go back to our sequencer now, turn it on. And let us turn up the randomness on our velocity. So we are able to randomize velocity and our octave, which is pretty nifty. One of the things we can also do in here is whether or not the note will occur at all. Trig probability. We're starting to build a gated sequence, which is kind of neat. Let's go ahead and turn the velocity up from randomness again. Let's turn the octave random bit all the way up. And let's go ahead and set some steps in here, shall we? We get a 2 octave range up and down, and yay. As with anything with a lot of probability, it always sounds better with delay. Some of those notes are a little deep for my taste. I'd like them all to sort of be up a little higher. You can see that we have these octave markers here, C1 versus C5, C3, mid, C3, stuff like that. That's the C note that you're playing. So let's go ahead and turn off our sequence real quick and go back to synth and jump over to edit real quick. We're going to edit the pitch of these notes to all be similar using the edit control. So let's transpose this up an octave. Transpose this up an octave. And transpose up 2 octaves. What else can we do in edit mode? Well, we can loop playback. We can reverse playback. We can change our time like that. Let's reverse a couple of these. Let's transpose this up so it reverses faster. Wonderful. This, let's go ahead and loop it. Let's set our loop points. So you have 2 sets of handles here now. Let's go ahead and loop this. And fade a little bit so we get rid of that 0 crossing click. Now let's change the loop mode forward and back. We also can pan our voices here and gain them up or down. So let's go ahead and pan these voices around, and let's go back to our sequencer now and see what we have wrought upon ourselves. That's pretty cool, right? You can hear reverse samples and so this is one of the things I really like about using the sequencer with these samples, is being able to create really complex sort of like almost chord karma-esque like PCM things. I think it's neat. What else do we got? We already talked about this. Sample pick. So this is useful because you can actually automate this. So if you wanted to set up a particular function or LFO to go through these, you could do that. So let's just give that a try real quick. Let's turn up this real quick. And so now you can see this is automated going down, which is kind of neat. And if we change the rate of this, we can change the vibe. Let's go ahead and loop this. I want to make it glitchier. I want to make little glitches. I really like the way that one loop bit sounds, so let's go ahead and do that more. Let's loop all of these, give them a little glitch loop. I think that'll be cool. All right, let's give that another try. That's so fucking cool. I like that a lot. That's really cool. All right, let's turn our function off. Round robin. A, B, C, D, E, E, F. A, B, C, D, E, E, F. This round robins through the samples. can see the white bar on each one. And then randomize. Instead of having to use a randomization tool over here to do it, or a randomization tool in our stuff down here, we can have it randomize for us. I love it. So lots of things that we can do with this. Let's go ahead and load some different samples into this. Let's go into drums and percussion. Let's go to our effects, drag that delay over here, and give ourselves something like a bit crusher or something. Yeah, sure. We're going to focus on just little tiny pieces of each one of these. There we go. So what we've done here is created a probabilistic ARP that is changing rates. So let's go ahead and turn this down. That doesn't sound like much, but it's kind of neat that we can create glitch, sort of probabilistic glitch percussion within a synth like this. And we still get access to things like our envelopes for filters and shit like that. So if we go into our filter here and hit envelope 2, okay, that was weird. Let's go back to default. And let's dive into the Granular engine. Granular synthesis is taking a sample and making little grains out of it and doing beautiful things with those grains. So we're going to start with a very chill version of it. So with granular stuff, you really want to like find something that has a nice relationship between the pitches, and we'll find out why in just a second. So remember how I said we want to keep an eye on where that bar is, that white bar? Well, it's going to come into play quite a bit in a second here. Let's turn the Granular engine on, turn our start point to in the middle so we can kind of see, and then see what happens when we press the key now. So these little white things coming out are grains. Those are the basis of granular synthesis. Density turns down the number of grains coming out from that part. This is the size of the grain, how long the grain lives, basically. And then we can change the shape of the grain. One of the cool things you can do in this is sync the grains to an actual time value, and then sync the size to a time value, and then reshape it so it becomes a rhythmic event. Let's go back to time and time, so we can get that sort of classic granular experience, and give ourselves a little envelope VCA there. These little dice that are on the side are similar to the dice that we were dealing with over here. They will introduce uncertainty or randomness into the things that they are connected to. So, random density dispersion. That means the density of these things will now be randomized, less or more. The direction. Do you want your grains to be backwards or forwards? Let's go ahead and reset the shape. I want them to be 50% backwards and 50% forwards. Backward grains are really, really nice. And backward means coming off of this, or the play direction around this start point here. Pitch. Very easy to get chaotic there. and then where the start point is in terms of randomness. Now you can see our grains are all over the place. And this actually sounds really good because Alex of Mylar Melodies was very smart when he recorded this and made some very good choices about the chords that he was playing. As we move this around, we get different grain dispersions. That's just fucking lovely. This is a perfect candidate for this type of granular. The higher this is up, the more around the start point you will create these grains. We'll get to using this on vocals in a while. Our randomness over here, we can have a random size in terms of how long the grain lives, and the width of the grain, and the volume of the grain. That's the pan. And then you can choose how many grains you are allowed to have at one time. Granular is basically ambient cheating depending on what you put into it. As you can see from here, we can play more than one note if we're feeling sassy. And when you have complex pitch relationships like this, so like, he's playing actually really smart pitches in here to be able to grain this, because this was made for Morphogene, which happens to be a granular, happy piece of modular gear, which means I can get away with playing octaves, perfect fifths, and maybe perfect fourths. Though not quite so much. I'd say get away with a perfect fifth and an octave, which is pretty common for complex pitch material like this. Let's try something else. These are gated kalimbas, so a much swarmier kind of feeling. One of my favorite things to do is this particular type of kalimba patch. Kalimbas sound so good for this. I've used this in a few of my compositions already on Morphogene. So let's take an LFO and let's assign it to our start point. And I'll slow it way down. We want to create a glittering cloud. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to my envelope VCA, turn this way up, way down. I want a long fade in. Beautiful. Hey, look, we have some effects over here. Let's try these out. We get access to the unison effect that we do for synth engines. All three, I believe. So let's try that out real quick. Let's go back to, let's see, guitar and bass, C5 clean. And let's put our start point right here. Let's go ahead and try a chord out. Well, that's nice. Have you ever wanted to make ambient? Have you considered granular? No, guess what? We have access to the second engine too. I love it. So what other stuff can we do with granular? Well, I told you we'd end up doing some creepy shit. Managing gibberish, here it is. Creepy, right? So, sample engine, very powerful. Granular, very powerful. instant ambient, depending on what you feed it. A lot of really cool options in here. Anything from doing, you know, like sequences through picking different samples, or you know, obviously granular pads and effects, whether or not they're synced. Incredible sound design tool, and then you can add another engine to it if you want. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the sequencer real quick as our finishing up thing. We've already sort of talked about it a little bit. I think it's worth talking about a little bit more. So let's go ahead and get an interesting thing going on here. I'm going to pick a waveform that I can fuck with. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and change our VCA to something this. Let's go ahead and take our dry wet down for our effects. Wonderful. And let's turn on our ARP and talk about it again, just because I want to. We'll change our regen to 1 bar, and we want to hold it. All right. So we talked about these being able to change the octave randomly. We also talked about being able to octave itself. So it's kind of like the electron ARP in that we can introduce these sequences on top of what we're doing with the ARP, which is really, really cool. Velocity, let's go ahead and assign something to velocity, shall we? Let's go to velocity and assign it to our cutoff frequency for filter 2. And turn up our unison for it. And go back to our sequence and turn up randomness for velocity. So now we can use velocity to introduce some probability in our sequence. And you can obviously sequence that as well. Trigger probability, will that particular part of the ARP actually hit? Let's go to our keyboard, turn this to mono, gate length here, whether or not the thing will hold its gate for a particular amount of time. Slide. Of course, we can enter that ourselves. We can change the regen to be faster for more randomization, or longer for less randomization, depending on how we're doing things over there. We have swing. So this polyrhythm thing will allow you to create independently long parts of your sequence, these lanes that we have here, and you can have them realign every few bars, which is really cool. Sequencer gives us the ability to pitch things chromatically. Not my favorite way to do this kind of thing, but hey, look, let's set a scale and have it do it for us. How about Dorian? Yeah. And look, chance for note. Isn't that wild? And now we can play around with the other lanes of the sequence. And we're going to turn realign off. So now this is running independently of this, which I think is just really cool. So I don't normally give a shit, and I normally completely avoid sequencers that are involved in synths, but the Pigments one does not fuck around. Like, it's really fucking cool to use, and these probabilistic things that they've added, and the ability to do these like separate lanes and shit is just so cool. I think it's very cool. Like, I should have finished up this video probably about 45 minutes ago, but you know how it go. I just get lost in these cool-ass patches. So, that's Pigments. It's a modular synth in a VST without being like an actual modular synth in VST. It's not like Faceplant or anything like that. But it sounds amazing, and it's got a lot of really amazing features, as I have shown you, hopefully. And I just hope that you've enjoyed this walkthrough of it with me. If you have any fun tips and tricks for Pigments, do let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to see more sound design videos from Pigments, let me know. I had a blast doing this. This synth is so engaging and fun. There's so many possibilities. You never run out of things to try. And I think that's, if I'm going to sit down at a computer and fuck around, I better have a reason to. And Pigments is a good reason to. Anyways, thanks for watching. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Beans Recording, and I hope you have a wonderful day.